My son. So, go ahead.
So, I know one of the nurse practitioners went over the scans, but I thought as the neurosurgeon, I'd show you some of the pictures too.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about what we see on the scan, and then what just examining him and looking at him tells us too, which in many ways is actually more important than what the scans tell us.
Yeah.
But when we look at the CT scan, all of these are done, almost all of them are done this way, kind of slicing the head this way.
Yeah.
So, and you can have all these. But this is the very bottom part of his brain. There's his eyes and the sinuses just above his nose there. You can see his ears there. Very deep in the brain, all these spaces should be big, dark fluid or regular fluid-filled spaces.
That's all blood?
That's all blood. And there's no room around the brain stem, the critical part of the brain that controls the basic functions that we've been examining with him in a coma. So blinking your eyes, swallowing, breathing, things like that. And there's really no room for it. It's compressed. And that's not blood that I can remove at all. And it's not just the blood causing the problem, but the brain itself, the whole brain is very swollen. It is also has some blood in a bottom part here that the spinal fluid circulates through that could be blocking that. If we work our way up his brain, we have another picture here, and these are left, this is left and this is right, like you're looking up from his feet. So this is some hemorrhage in the brain itself, but that's not putting much pressure on the brain. There's a larger hemorrhage here in a deep part of the brain. The fancy word is the basal ganglia, but just to know that that's the spot that all the signals from the main part of the brain get in and out from. And it's on the left side, which is the side that controls speech, and the movement on the right side.
Oh.
So he's had severe damage to that part of the brain that moves his right arm and leg and controls not only producing speech, but understanding speech.
Oh.
And then if we go up a little higher, we can still see that large area of bleeding, but not large enough that removing would help. And then here at the very top, you see blood that kind of goes across the two halves of the brain.
Yeah.
There's a structure, the fancy name is the corpus callosum, and that's the part of the brain where it allows fibers to connect between the two halves so the two sides of the brains can talk.
What could cause that?
Well, all of this, he hit his head so hard, and his head likely twisted and jerked so hard that it's torn all these connections and caused all this major bleeding. It also causes swelling or edema. There's so much pressure that even when he first came in, it's causing what we call herniation. And a herniation is when part of the brain comes out a spot that it's not supposed to. So if we look at this picture, this one is done as though we cut him this way. So there's his nose and his sinuses. That's the back of his head. That's the bump on his head and the scalp where he got hit.
Like an egg, probably breaking like an egg or something like that. That's what I see it.
The very back part of the brain hangs down and usually stops where the skull opens here. But he has all this tissue that's been pushed down by the swelling of the brain, compressing this area called the brain stem.